Yo, today I'm going to be breaking down my track Bondrewds Sacrifice. If you guys are interested in more of these kind of like breakdowns, or if you want more general beginner tutorials on how to make these kind of tracks, then just let me know in the comments below. Before getting into the actual track itself, two general tips I want to give is, firstly, if you're making these sort of longer tracks, I think it's helpful to have a kind of reference of a piece that you like, just because it'll allow your song or your track to feel more like a story is being told. So for instance, I used Kevin Penkin's piece Gravity for this one. And then the other tip is just to use dynamics to make your orchestral instruments sound more realistic. So for instance here, if we just take this random part of the song, over here we have the dynamics that are being changed, which is basically like sort of like, you know, you could think of like how loud or expression like the instrument is being played. So like if I put it up all the way like this, you'll hear it sounds a lot different to that, where it sounds like a lot more natural and like someone is really playing it, and also like gradually going up in volume. And real quick, if you are curious how to get it like this on your FL Studio, I'm sure it's pretty similar in other DAWs. If you go to BBC Symphony Orchestra, which is what I use here, but any orchestral plugin will have something for dynamics. If you just play around with it, then go Tools, Last Tweaked, and click Edit Events, it should appear over here, and then you can click Alt and just play around with it with your mouse. Okay, so starting off with this first section, I made this simple melody using the flute sustain patch from BBC Symphony Orchestra, which sounds like this. And it's quite basic, so I added in these staccato little tiny just switch ups in the melody just to make it a little more interesting, and that sounds like this. You get the idea. And then from there it was just about sort of filling in, sort of making this main melody. So I added in these little flute runs over here. Very simple, but just sort of adds a little more dynamic, or sort of just adds a little more to the melody. And then from there it's just about filling in the mid and low ends of the sound. So here I added in these bassoons. What was also playing there was these clarinets, just playing a very simple counter melody, because I already have, I guess, quite a bit of melodic content already going on from the woodwind, so I just want to sort of like complement it very basic. So it's almost, you know, just playing one note every bar, but then these occasional switch ups. And then from there, it's basically just about adding all the different parts. This is kind of like the meat to the melody, so it's just about adding more sounds and like slowly building it up in the arrangement. So I wanted to open up with the same chord progression from the bassoons, but just with the bass from the strings. I just think that the bass, you know, kind of opening or using the bass strings just gives this sort of haunting feel, which is what I wanted to go for. Then they get reintroduced over here, and then I forgot I also added in some oboes over here, just to fill out the entire woodwind spectrum. I also added, I think this is violas. Oh no, cellos. once again, very basic, like counter melody, trying not to interfere with the main melody too much. And then from here, I think is where the brass gets introduced. And here I wanted it to play a like completely different chord progression and, well, I guess, or yeah, just completely different chord progression that would eventually ascend, like you see here, just so that the end of this loop is like rising, and you're not really sure where it's going to go afterwards. This note doesn't actually hit for the French horns, if it is it is the French horns, but it hits in the other ones. And then I also added in these bass trombones, just playing the root notes of the new chord progression. Yeah, and so on. And then from there, it was adding in this trumpet line over here. And then one thing that makes orchestral, parts like this like sound more powerful and more real is by layering them with just other versions of the same instruments, but from different plugins. So here I have the free orchestra, the Sam free orchestra from in the free contact player, and that's just playing the same melody that I've shown from before, the one that's like rising up, and together it sounds like this. And then I also have these automations over here, which basically just control the volume, which just makes it so that these instruments get louder as the arrangement goes on, which just gives it that big crescendo effect. And then for this next section over here, I switched it up to guitar, which plays this chord progression over here. So yeah, kind of sad, but also a little hopeful, kind of going down and then back up again. And then I added from the, just to sort of layer, I added in this choir from Mikao's choir from the labs, which is free as well. It sounds like this. And I'm pretty sure this follows just like, or it's just meant to be a sort of harmonization of these chords over here, and the same sort of harmony, I think the exact same notes, I also applied to this other choir, but since I don't have the full access to it, I just have to consolidate it into an MP3. And then I also added this bass over here. I wanted to, because Kevin typically uses kind of electronic basses in his stuff, so that sounds like this. And then I added this, it's from a like sample pack or loop pack. It's just this phrase that goes plays throughout quite a bit of the second section, and I just wanted it to sort of symbolize bondrewds influence with a kind of like synths. You see that a lot in Kevin's stuff, like the synth is meant to be the kind of like presence of bondrewd, so I have this playing. So yeah, just keeps looping like that. And then here I would say this is like the sort of main melody kind of within the section, or main counter melody, which is just from Phase Plant. It's just playing this kind of like fluty sort of synth sound, and I thought it matched quite well once again with sort of Kevin's sound selection, where he likes a lot of like woodwinds and flute sounding things, and then also synth, so I thought it was a cool combo, and it sounds like this. Oh, I'll play it all together with what's playing so far. Yeah, so it kind of has this like back and forth structure, and then also like following the kind of like trajectory of the chord progression, where it goes up here as well, just to, because it is always nice, like a general tip as well, is when you play notes from the chord progression, to sort of follow the idea from the chord progression in your melody. If you use the same notes, they typically almost always sound good. And if you sort of follow the kind of like structure to your chord progression, whether it's going up or down or whatever, that will also make it just sound good naturally. And then I also added in this very basic, just sort of like counter melody from this piano from Labs, the soft piano, also free. Quite basic, just plays in the second and fourth bar. And I forgot to mention this in the first section, but a kind of important tip for when I'm making these counter melodies is kind of to listen, or trying to listen to the gaps in the melody, or the sort of like parts where there might be more discrete notes playing, or not as important notes playing, or it's playing for a long sustained note or something like that, because then you kind of have these like not silences, but these parts where you can fill in like more melodic content. So that's why I added in this, just to add in like a little more, just make it a little more interesting. And then from here it's gonna like go into this big section. But before, I wanted to have this final big crescendo sort of, or using also the same instruments that we used in the first part, so like the violins, brass, and everything. I wanted to just introduce them here. So they play this new melody that once again goes down kind of, and then ascends at the very end. So yeah, I don't know what that note is doing over there, but that's sort of the main melody that plays, or then in this next section over here. And then I think this is a violin over here that plays it as well. Yep, or a viola. No, yeah, violins. And then I return to the silence. So you kind of have this like gradual build up of like different parts, or sorry, different instruments that haven't really been featured. And then I wanted to kind of like get this like calm before the storm. So I just have the phrase playing, the bass, and the guitar again. And that plays for 8 bars before it then goes into this section, where I'll just like showcase, it's like the same melody from these two parts over here, but just added to a bunch more instruments. This is the same thing here, and this is another way to make things, I don't know. Yeah, this is, I'm guessing, violas. Yeah, violas. One way to make things sound more just large and make your instruments sound more big is to just put them on 2 different octaves. So here I put it here and here, and it just makes it sound a lot more full. So for instance, versus, if I just take away this for a second, obviously it sounds a lot more, just sounds louder doing it that way. And then from there is also adding brass. So yeah, I think these are the trombones. Yeah, tenor trombones. And then the kind of final idea to all this was to have It's very basic, just running up the scale like this. I think it's this one was a violin as well. Oh no, this was a bass trombone. Yeah, and it's just running up the scale very simply, but it's just to kind of in the background subtly add to this idea that we're rising. And then the same as earlier, I have this these horns from the Contact player, or the Project Sam free orchestra, just playing the same melody. Once again, just layering it makes it sound more full and nicer. And yeah, that's it. And then it just sort of fades out eventually, but all of it sounds like this together. So yeah, and then yeah, it fades out over just the guitar and the phrase. So yeah, that was the track. I tried to go decently in depth, but there's definitely things I could have explained more. So if you guys want me to break down other tracks, but in more depth, where I actually explain the process of the melodies a little more carefully, I could definitely do that. Otherwise, I could do more breakdowns live as I'm actually making something, so I can explain my choices regarding the melodies and whatnot. But yeah, that was it. Thank you guys for watching.